We are incredibly excited to have you all for the first office hours program at Common Room for 2025 on all things sales performance and helping reps be high performers with Common Room. And with that, I will pass it over to Kevin, our head of marketing, who will be leading our walkthroughs and a lot of the more product-focused conversations today. So with that, thank you all.
Cool. Thanks, Joel. And so, hey everyone, I'm Kevin. I lead the marketing team at Common Room, and also the SDR team is part of the marketing team. We kind of like view ourselves as the pipe gen creation org of Common Room, and so that was like the direction I was hoping to take this. But it is office hours, and so some people like to sit in the background and be silent off camera and just like soak things in, even just if you're not looking at the screen. That's totally fine. But also wanted to make sure, since we have a group here, that if there's anything that's like top of mind and you want me to like think through that lens, that would be helpful as I go through both some like presentation kind of slides, but then also like the common room itself to show you kind of how we do signal stacking and prioritization. That's kind of like the topic of the day for this office hours. Like I'm happy to take that into account now and try and weave it into how it can apply to your own personal use case. So for the group here, like if you want to chime in now and ask anything in particular, happy to consider that. And then if not, no big deal. I'll just go through kind of what was the planned agenda here.
I have a quick question,
Mhm.
and we may not be able to answer it today in the moment, and that's okay because I actually have a sync later this afternoon. But I was curious if I wanted to combine within our CRM the information from Common Room with a separate third party source and have them paired into the same contact field. Is that handled on the HubSpot level?
Yeah, actually, this is some of the content I wanted to get into today or had on the agenda, so I might as well just like jump to some of that first
Yes.
here. So, yeah, I think it's handy to share how we integrate with both HubSpot and Salesforce, and getting those fields or those signals into Common Room is like a really fast path to those integrations that maybe like aren't native, like an RB2B might be an example, or like Gong or something like that. And so the way that works and the way that we feed our team this data is by just syncing over the fields that are going into Salesforce or that are custom or that are like natively built from this other integration into Salesforce or HubSpot. They both kind of work in a very similar way, and then pushing those into Common Room, and like that whole exchange of like this signal happened in this source, it syncs to HubSpot. I mean, that we don't have control over how long that sync takes, but then the sync from HubSpot into Common Room should be relatively quick within like a matter of minutes. And so essentially you can pull and sync those signals via your CRM, from another source to your CRM to Common Room, kind of like how HubSpot and Salesforce or Marketo and Salesforce kind of exchange data. It kind of works in the same way. So let me just show how to do that and set that up and how we do it at Common Room. So I'll do quickly both the HubSpot and Salesforce version of it. So if you go into your app settings, which is just down here, settings, you automatically are dropped into signals and integrations. We have, this is our demo instance where we have both HubSpot and Salesforce connected. I'll just go through HubSpot. They both kind of work the same exact way. So once you've connected HubSpot, you have these mappings here of how to get data both in and out of Common Room. And so the area where you, for this particular use case where you like have signal coming into HubSpot, maybe it's in a field that's not in Common Room. The way to do that is just through field mapping. And so if I click edit here, you see we have like the different objects in HubSpot, contact fields, company fields, and deal fields. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Salesforce works in a very similar way. I'll just show this real quick, where we have the different objects of Salesforce, which is lead fields, contact fields, which is very frustrating because it's all just a contact and a person, and then account fields, opportunity fields, and campaign fields. And so if you click into edit any of these, you can see these are all fields that are mapped via HubSpot. And then the type of field of how you want that field rendered into Common Room. So if I click add a field here, I can just select the field name. Like this will just use the HubSpot API to say like, oh, here's all the fields that you have in HubSpot. We have like 300, so we don't map them all. And it'll give you like the type of field here. And then the only other thing you would need to do is name that field specifically in Common Room so that you know where it is and how to filter and how to use it inside of Common Room. The best practice here is to try and like name your field the same across both platforms, just so you're not like confused, or if you export, you can like join and stuff like that. But that's the way you would do it to add a new field. And then if you had like something custom that you wanted to create in Common Room and pass back into HubSpot, for example, you can do it another way, which is to one, create a new field. So you can click new field here and then specify if it's on the contact or org level, and then the type of field, and then you just do the same thing but in reverse to map that into HubSpot. So it's a really powerful thing to do by using HubSpot as a proxy to pull signal in the Common Room, and then like vice versa, pull signal from Common Room and push it into HubSpot. The other thing that I wanted to cover, and I might as well just cover it since I'm covering HubSpot and Salesforce now, is that another really powerful thing that we introduced that a lot of people don't know exists, or it's kind of new and people haven't started using it yet, is the ability to, actually I'm going to go into a play here, the ability to sync contacts or plays into a Salesforce campaign or a HubSpot workflow. And so here we have this burn down list of pricing page visits from economic buyers in the last 28 days. And if I wanted my team to, a lot of times people will take these types of plays and want to push them into a Salesforce campaign for reporting or tracking or attribution. Same thing with HubSpot workflows. It's like you want to take these leads and push them into HubSpot so you can nurture them through like marketing use cases or something like that. So what you can do here, and you can automate all this too, but we have the ability in both HubSpot and Salesforce to add all these people into a specific Salesforce campaign or a specific HubSpot workflow. And then also recently added the ability to add them to a HubSpot sequence if you're using HubSpot for outbound email sequencing like Outreach or Gong Engage or SalesLoft. So I bring all this up, and I know I'm going fast here, but this is all part of the agenda for today. And so I'm glad you asked, and we could cover that, and happy to follow up with any other specific questions, but hopefully that gives you a good sense of what's possible here.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and then if you wanted to go like the automated routes, essentially you would just do the same thing. Like all of our segments, like these are all just we changed our UI a bit, and I don't know where to look at the settings of this. Here, it's probably here. Go to segment, and then you can see settings here. All of these settings for adding and removing someone into a segment, which is like our nomenclature for a list of contacts or a list of organizations, is all available as a filter or a trigger in our automated workflows. And so if you wanted to automate all of this, you could take the same exact approach. Just go to workflows, click on new workflow, and then you can specify run for a set of contacts. This is just like a generic trigger, and then add whatever filters you need for like a website visit or a contact tag or something. And then the other step you would add, instead of doing that, like select all, add to a sequence, add to a Salesforce campaign, it's all just now available here as an automated step, and it kind of works the same way. So and this kind of gets into the approach in our methodology too, of like how we run different plays at Common Room. Essentially, like what we're doing as an SDR team is working these plays at a manual level, where they're like, an SDR is coming in here, they're reviewing this play of like a persona plus like some signal that has happened within that persona, and they're selecting these people and they're adding them into an outreach sequence for, say, pricing page visits, and doing that manually, and then we'll measure it and see like how those plays are working. And then if they're just going into these plays and just selecting everyone without any like extra context or extra detail and personalization added. And the like outbound sequence or the AI generated sequence that we have is just working well. Essentially, we'll just take this off their plate as like the final step and then say like, oh, we're going to automate all this through a workflow. It's going to be always on and working in the background. And then when someone hits our website, they'll get an email from you as the SDR or whoever. You don't need to do any work. And then when they when they reply, it'll go directly to your inbox. And so we're trying to eliminate all that like manual work over time. And so the more plays that we add over time, the more complex and the more thought needs to be put into the plays. And then we're trying to get to a place where they're all just automated and on autopilot. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but like that's kind of like the approach that we take. And so I'll get to in some of that in the presentation as well. So I know I've already gone through a lot in the first 15 minutes here, but hopefully we're off to a good start. Cool. Okay, so let me just jump into some of the presentation, which I used before for this presentation for Rev Genius. So I'm just repurposing some slides here. The first thing that, and this is all kind of under the guise of like, this is how the methodology that we recommend our customers take with regards to generating pipeline and for their SDR team mostly, or whoever's like doing the outbound, warm outbound kind of motion. And then how to take this and scale it so that you can make it like predictable and scalable for generating pipeline over time. And so the first, actually, I should start here. The thing that you need to do this is the prerequisites for execution on these like warm outbound plays. And that's like, since you're already here, like I don't need to like explain this so much. It's like you need to have Common Room, or it helps to have a tool like Common Room to be able to do this. So you need to be able to capture a signal. You need to know like where these buying signals are happening, and to be able to build these plays. And then you also need to be able to prioritize, which is, identify the person and the account behind the signal. I mean, you don't want to be reaching out to, some intern in some location where you can't sell into, and that's where our person 360 and identity and enrichment come into play. So a signal with filter on top, and then you need the ability to do some sort of thing with those two things. You need to be able to send them an email, to send an alert to your sales team, to put them into a nurturing sequence or something like that if you're on the marketing side. And so like these are all the three pillars of Common Room and also the prerequisites that are needed to be able to do this sort of go-to-market motion. And then the place where a ton of people, the first question I always get asked is like, what signals should we get started with? And so you might have like seen this spreadsheet before. I'll just share it in the chat here if hopefully it's helpful and not overwhelming. But essentially, we just created a huge list of here are all the signals that you. Most of these are all capturable via Common Room, and here are the signals that you should consider. You don't have to like go from a blank slate to try and think of like, oh, what are the signals that I want to use or want to get started with. It's like, here's a bunch of ideas for you. The problem with this sheet is it's just like, there's 100 of them. So it's very overwhelming. And so what we do as our team at Common Room is, and like for advising our customers as well, is we kind of like group these signals into like different categories, which packages them up into like nice, neat places to get started. And so I have this here also on this tab, but I like to talk about this slide a bit because it's like, okay, I'm bought into this approach and methodology, like where, what are the signals that are relevant to me for my go-to-market motion? And so a lot of our customers are open source or product-led companies. Like those are typically the places where we recommend people get started. And then, so it's like, oh, we have a product-led motion. Like, okay, great. Here are all the signals here are a bunch of signals. Like there's probably infinite amount of product-led signals that you can use for plays. But like here's a starting point for the different product-led signals that you can consider, because if it's product-led, that's probably like the closest point to where there's high buyer intent. And like if you're getting that data already, that's like probably the closest point to conversion where you'd want to get started at. For open source, it's a similar thing. It's just like instead of using their product, you're using an open source, the prospect's using an open source repo. So it's like, this is probably a good place to get started. Or if you're sales led or something, maybe you get a lot of website traffic, or you have a lot of social activity, like this grouping is probably the place to get started. And so the way that we do things internally at Common Room and also how we recommend is just kind of like pick one of these things that you think has, you have the best hunch around. And by hunch, I mean, which of these is probably closest to the highest level intent, and also mix of like there's a decent amount of volume there. Like I wouldn't choose just like demo requests because you get like very low volume there. And take that as the starting point of like a group of signals that you can action and build plays around. And then okay, so I'll pause there and just see if anyone has any questions there, because I want to make sure I'm not like going too fast and like above everyone's head, because I tend to do that. And so I want to make sure like this is all making sense so far. Good.
Yeah, this is all making sense. This is a small group, so just really quick, I'm brand new to Common Room. We just signed on as a customer, so I'm very much just observing right now.
Oh, cool. Appreciate it. And thanks for chiming in, Jay. And if you need to go off cam, no big deal. Happy to help out.
Yeah,
Cool.
no, thank you.
And then, okay, so once I'm going to skip slides a little bit here. Okay, so once we get to this, say we're like, okay, we're going to go all in on product-led signals as our starting point, then you can kind of like break apart like, okay, which signal details within this signal are the ones that we want to build plays around. And I would recommend like, choosing like a mix of like 3 or 4 to get started with. In Common Room itself, we have segments for SDRs. Let me see if I can find this. SDR, this is going to be on my segments though. Actually, the better way to do this would be to show you in our settings how the plays that our SDR team is running right now. And so you can do this by looking at team access and then BDRs. And then you can see anything with the SDR tag here. You can see there's product signups for in the SMB, product signups in commercial, people who are engaging with the Common Room LinkedIn handle, website visits. So we have like different plays that are categorized around different things. We had another one, I don't know where it is, why it's not showing here, that was product signups that are hitting like limitations of like your free plan. And so like there's different segments and different groups within the signal category, like a product signal, for example, that you can start with and expand upon until you kind of like tapped out this one category. And so for example, on product-led signals, like what you'd want to do is essentially start here, start with like people signing up for like a new product, people hitting like inviting other people to the product, people connecting different integrations. Like there's just a number of these that you want to like pick out to pass over your team to start working. And then from there, what you'd want to do is like see like, okay, these plays are converting at this level. What can we do to improve the conversion rate to pipeline based on our team actioning those signals? And there's like these 3 different points that we always turn to see how we can optimize and get the most out of this cohort of this play, like this product-led play. And so the things that I look at is, can we improve speed to lead? Can our team follow up faster? Can we change our messaging that we send via outreach or that we generate via AI? And then can we increase the number of touch points and extend that campaign as well? And so there's probably more that you can do to optimize here. But like these are the 3 things that we tend to look at so that we can say like, okay, this play around someone signed up for our product, they're in our ICP, can we do one of these 3 things to get the most out of this play? And then at some point you'll get to, I had it here, like signal category optimization. So like at some point you'll reach some sort of like threshold or point of no return where you're not getting as much conversion out of that grouping of signal, or you're hitting ceilings. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick here. You're hitting ceilings of extracting more higher conversion rate out of this play. And so from that point, we then turn to what other signals, what other signal groupings, whether it's a website play or a social play or any one of these different categories here, should you do next and repeat that whole same process again. And so I call this like it's a version of signal stacking. There's also a version of signal stacking where you're like looking at someone who changed jobs, who was a former product user. Excuse me. But then this is another version of signal category stacking, which is, okay, we're using all these product signals. We have all these plays. That's working. That's kind of like on autopilot. Like, what can we do next to pull in to our team and start with a different category of signals and getting them to run those plays? Because like that's the next chain in the domino that's going to unlock more pipeline for us. And so, yeah, go
I
ahead.
have 2 questions before we move on. First question, when you were talking about adding slash editing to the workflow, is that a manual component that you could isolate a single like prospect essentially versus editing the entire workflow and impacting everyone in it?
Let me think.
Did I
I
understand that right?
don't know if I, excuse me, I don't know if I fully caught the question. So if you're in an, sorry, automated workflow,
And so
and
we go through the signals and we've identified, let's focus on the PLG example. So somebody
uh-huh.
came in, they hit the premium, they're interested in a couple other features, you put them into the designated workflow, they have engagement, but no direct response. So you want to like shift the next piece of the workflow or extend it. Is that on an individual basis or does it affect everybody associated with that workflow?
Oh yeah, so that's where I think I have you here. So like, so what you mean by workflow is like, for example, this is a workflow of a team member coming in and working this product usage signal. And then you're saying like, as the next step of a workflow, you want them to move on to, website visits as a separate category. Is that accurate?
Kind of, yes.
And
So
so,
say like the signals combined or they're both present. I guess my biggest question is it
oh,
customizable to reflect whatever behavior comes from the outreach associated with the workflow.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah. This is
maybe
a
that's a
common,
better way to put it.
yeah, yeah. This is a common question that we get, which is like, it's like, okay, how do we stack rank and prioritize this? And then like,
Hmm.
what if someone qualifies for two different things? Then what do we do?
Right.
And so this actually gets into another topic that I wanted to discuss here. And I should have grabbed some water for myself because I'm having like a coughing fit.
Oh,
But
me too. You are not alone.
I
Coughing
think
all
there's a
day.
flu. I think there's a flu going around. Okay, so there's a few things here that I want to touch on. So one is you can if it's your team that's going through this stuff and manually doing it, the way we suggest doing it is you have the ability to reorder segments all you
Hmm.
want in a segment is just like this is the play that the team is running. And so you want to get to a point like the Valhalla or like the place that we want to get to is a point where like your team is just working the different plays based on the priority of how they'll convert to pipeline. And so
Hmm.
to get there, you need to understand I'm going to get to this I'm going to allude to this and then actually show it in a bit. But to get there, you actually need to understand like which of these plays are actually working and converting to pipeline, which we have new reporting that can show you how to do that.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah,
But
because I really want to help prioritize the workflows that have the highest conversion rates and then iterate off of those when they inevitably need to be shifted because the conversion rate drops. Um,
uh,
and
yeah,
then
so,
the second,
no, go ahead.
yeah, we can just move on if we're covering that part later. And then the second component that I was curious about was the other form of signal stacking that you mentioned. Are both forms possible, or is it just like the
So
uh
sorry, this one where you're going from like one category to the next.
kind of?
Um,
uh,
Oh,
excuse me. Okay, so pretty much like anything is possible. You can say this is a pricing page visit segment. If I wanted to add they're also have changed jobs recently. I
Mm-hmm.
can that's like combining two different signals into like one play, right? I
Mm-hmm.
can add a filter here and add job change. Has contact job changes happened in the last 12 weeks? There's not a lot of people who match that, or in the last 6 months. And then now, and I can save this as a new segment. And so that's like combining two different signals and signal stacking, like one category to another category in one. And so like your conversion rate on these is going to be really high. But as you can see, like when I added that filter, the volume became really low because there's just not that many people who have visited our pricing page who've also changed jobs. It makes sense as you add
Yeah.
more criteria, it narrows the list. And so you can totally like organize your segments or your plays that way. It's just like a matter of like how much volume you'll see and how a rep can go through this in like 2 seconds. And so you might want to add more there so you get more volume. And then just like and then to answer like the category question, essentially you could do uh you would do the category, like this could all be, this is a new user sign up, like new user sign up segment. This is a they connected a new integration. This is a they're reaching their expired, like they're reaching their trial end. So these could all just be like stacks of product led signals. And then the next one down here is maybe not, is the next step in the chain, which is like the next highest converting thing, which is like a website visit. So yeah, you can mix and match and organize this all you like. It's very flexible. I don't know if
Perfect.
that
Okay.
answers the question, but like, yeah, you can, it's very flexible, so you can kind of like do it however you want. And I would just say work with your implementation engineer, or me directly, or Joel directly if you want help there. But yeah, you can definitely do all of that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that answered all the questions, and I'm glad I teed you up again for some more content. But thank you.
Cool, cool, cool. And then and so yeah, where the point where you ultimately get to is where your or the point, the goal that we're trying to get to for our team and for our customers is like they're not doing any cold outbound whatsoever. Essentially, they're just working purely out of common room or purely from a signals based approach, because that's what converts the pipeline at a higher rate. And so we're trying to like just build as many of these, like keep stacking and adding more and more plays, and so that they never get to a point where they have to just do like cold outbound prospecting, because that's like the lowest converting thing on the totem pole. And so where this becomes much more scalable, and hopefully this is not too complex to show, is that we have different types of, like I was showing this earlier, we have different types of views based on a role. So if you add someone, a new seat to common room who's a BDR versus an account executive versus someone on the marketing team, you can set up this kind of like prioritize burn down list, this prioritize signal stack of plays to work for their home view, so that they just like jump into common room and they start working from the highest prioritized, highest converting plays down to the lowest, and hopefully they never exhaust that whole list throughout their day, because that's just what's going to optimize giving you the most pipeline possible if you're looking at it from like a managerial or like ops lens. And so if you're an ops person or a manager, you can come in and set up these different plays. All of these are just they're named kind of accordingly, but all of these are just the different plays that we're having our team work, and they're segments, and they're a combination of something happened in the product plus they have some sort of like criteria of company size or fundraising amount or something like ICP fit. And so, I don't know if I needed to go in there. So what you can do, oh shoot, let's go back here. What you can do here, and I'll go to reporting in a second, is once you have this list of plays that your team is running, you can then say like this commercial play was converting higher than this SMB play. What we can do as a manager is say like, okay, I actually want to move this up to the top and move this one down because it's not converting as high as I would like it. And so this is the way to like, once you get data on how these plays are working, you can then stack rank them so that your team is working the highest converting plays first. I'm going to cancel this so I don't screw anything up, even though we're in a demo environment. I don't think that would impact anyone, but just in case. And so the last thing that I wanted to get across before. I'm running out of time already. I'm oversharing probably. The last thing I wanted to show is just our reporting capabilities, which we recently introduced. And this is it's somewhat in beta still, but it's still very powerful and allows you to like see all of how all of your plays are performing. And so if you click on this reporting here and click on business overview, you can see here all of the different segments. So these are all the different like cohorts of plays that our team is running. And then we have this mapped to, oh, okay, so let me actually start with the way that this was done before, or the way that you would optimize this before is you would run these plays in either a CRM or a email sequencer tool, and then you'd report on like, oh, are they getting replies? Are they getting engagements? But then you wouldn't have this kind of visibility into like, is it generating pipe? Is it generating revenue? And so what we've built is the ability to have that like offline reporting from your CRM back into Common Room so that you say like, oh, this contact was associated or added to this campaign that was worked by this SDR or sales rep. How much pipeline or how many meetings booked is that associated with? And so you can easily map these to fields in Salesforce. It's all just the same kind of like data setting that I showed in Salesforce or HubSpot. Actually, this is only available for Salesforce right now, but HubSpot is coming very soon. And so you can then sort by like, okay, how much pipe gen are these plays generating, and in what time frame? So in the last 365 days, which are our top plays? I can add a filter, any filters here for that the segment contains like SDR with that bracket, for example. Because like you get with people running their own plays and like building lots of segments, this is obviously like very messy. And so I can select all of these ones. I think we'll eventually add a feature where this says contains. This is a feature request on my end, so you don't have to select all these by hand. And you can see there's just a ton of SDR mess in here. But the reason I'm highlighting this is just like get across the point of like you can filter this down by what plays your team is actively working right now. I can click submit here and then like narrow this down to like here are all the SDR plays. And then from there we can see which ones are generating the most pipe and then do the conversion math of, I probably selected some that don't have any pipe or any like leads connected, but you get the point where it's like, here are all the contacts who have been added to the segment. Here's all the pipeline that it's generated. And then that gives you the lens where you can like stack rank and say like, okay, say this Anita playbooks page visitors was like a top ranking one. I can then go back into my home view or that settings view here, and then move that play up to the top of the list because we know that that is converting at the highest rate. And so that's kind of the way to look at this reporting, see what's generating the most pipeline, the most revenue, and then stack rank these plays accordingly. That's now available all in Common Room, so you don't have to like stitch together across different places, and you can get trustworthy, reliable data in one place. So cool. We're with 10 minutes left. I think that was most of what I wanted to cover. Joel, I don't know if there's other stuff that I missed, but open to other questions here from the group.
No, I think you covered all of it, Kevin, and now you can also breathe while folks ask questions for a few
I'm sorry I've
minutes.
been coughing this whole time. I've just been, I'm getting over a cold, so
It
appreciate you
is
bearing
all
me
good.
coughing into the mic.
With
Question.
our,
I got a
oh
question.
yeah, go for it.
Um, I was wondering, like, just from like your own experience. So a little bit of context. I'm experimenting with doing like some outbound, and in the coming months, we're gonna like layer on like an SDR component to our outbound. And I'm just curious, like, in your experience, like, what are kind of like the signals that are the most valuable for like SDRs? For example, like I eyeballed, like you have like LinkedIn engagement, and you have like some other kind of like product activity stuff. But just like in your own experience, like what are the ones that kind of like really shine with like Common Room?
Yeah, I would say this is pretty common. And then tell me your company too, just so I get
Oh yeah.
your motion. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so work in the like broader kind of like developer space. So work at LakeFS, and what we provide is like infrastructure software for data scientists, data engineers, machine learning engineers.
Huh.
We have an open source component to our product. So it's a technical audience. Some of the people are kind of like masked and hiding within like open source, but we also know like, who our kind of like ICP is now. And this is going to help us kind of like fuel like our outbound. So we get like
Cool.
some activity like on our website for sure. Common Room helps us like identify some of that activity at the organizational level, not necessarily like at the contact level. Um, but there are other signals that Common Room is kind of like aggregating that helps us. Like we have a big presence on like LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
I always trying to think of like, okay, where's like the biggest bang for my buck? Like LinkedIn is, relatively kind of like I think like a lower intent signal
Totally.
versus like some other things that are happening. But at the same time, like we still want to like nurture those people or have like a segment for those people who are engaging with us within LinkedIn.
Yeah. Great, great. That's really helpful context because it is dependent on your motion, go-to-market motion and approach. And open source is like open source and dev tooling is like a really great use case for Common Room. Um, in this spreadsheet, I created this kind of like heuristic for like understanding, and this is based off of my tribal knowledge from working
Mhm.
with lots of different customers and like our own use cases. And so this is kind of mapping both two things. This is the lens where I look at like how should we prioritize which signal to start with? And this is like propensity score, which is another version of saying like what do we think this is likely to convert at? And a score from like 1 to 10, or I guess this is if it's a point, it's a 1 to 100 if it's a point system. And then the approximate volume, like how much of that signal are we going to see on a given like weekly or monthly basis? And so from here, you can kind of get a sense of like, and then I also plotted it out on this chart. Actually, let me make this more readable here and say, okay, oh, these are the signals that are applicable. You can check this box and say only those that are true. And then so you kind of get like, once you see this, you kind of look at it on this vector of like, which signals are the highest volume and which are the highest converting. And so I created this spreadsheet as a resource for you to like plug in your own numbers there if you want. And so like I would start like as much in this upper right quadrant as possible because that means high volume plus high propensity to convert. But like to just answer your question more generally, with let me go back here with the common patterns with companies that fit your profile on open source is like the place I would most often start is your GitHub repo if you have like a decent amount of activity across your repos or multiple repos. We also have the ability to listen into alternative or competitive repos. And so like that's another place too. If like your product is like, a better version of like an Apache open source project or something like that, like you can listen into those different ecosystems. And then what Common Room does really well is it'll tell you and de-anonymize the person, the account behind that open source activity. And so for any kind of open source company, it's like that is the place that I absolutely recommend to get started. And then from there, I would go to, if you have a like cloud hosted version or a product led version, then move into product signals. I've seen those convert at the next highest level compared for companies that fit your profile. And then from there, it's like kind of a toss up between website signals and social activity. If you get a lot of LinkedIn and social activity, to your point, it's maybe like not the highest intent, but you can pull those signals into Common Room. And then maybe it's your marketing team that's saying like, oh, this account is engaging with our company handle LinkedIn content a lot. Like let's retarget that account or send ads to that account to nurture them or get them or send them emails to get them warmed up, but not necessarily have your SDR team work them.
Thank you for
Um,
that. That helps.
yep. There's other things like job changes like for if you're one other thing I forgot to mention is that um there's two things I forgot to mention. One is their tech stack. If their tech stack is using some like competitive or infrastructure type product, like that's something that might be good to like isolate. Like it's maybe more for qualification criteria of like, oh, these are the accounts that are good for us because they're using our competitors. The other thing for open source that is super helpful is that we've seen is on the org level. You can do job listings, keyword search, or just any mention of skills in a job listing. So if you put like Kubernetes in here as an example,
Yeah.
you can see all the companies have open job listings for Kubernetes, and then you can even like create what we call a calculated field to see how many job listings contain the word Kubernetes, and that'll help you like stack rank which accounts and just replace Kubernetes with whatever keyword or skill set is valuable for your team. And then you can stack rank based on, okay, how many job listings are there open for this specific skill set, and like this is the accounts that we want to start working because they're obviously have some sort of initiative that's relevant to us in the works right now.
Yep. Got it. How well does like the job listings data compare to some of kind of like the specialty vendors out there that do that like on the enrichment side?
Yeah, that's
Um,
a nice part about Common Room is that those are the partners that we work with. And so
yeah.
essentially like instead of working directly with them, we were aggregating it all together and kind of subsidizing the costs so that you don't have to. And so it's updated on a regular basis and you don't have to work with like a um, costly point solution like Bombora
HG,
or
yeah,
Rent.
Bombora, HG Insights.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
are all like our partners, and like essentially you get the same data here without the like crazy high cost. And that's
Okay.
like actually that's mostly their business model too, but some people like to work directly with them. Cool. Good questions.
Thank you.
I have yet another question. I'm sorry.
All good?
Um, I had a question around, I guess maybe the right phrasing is activity thresholds. Are there parameters built in to prevent like a spam effect or getting like improperly flagged as spam?
Yeah, that's a oh, you mean okay, so there's parameters both on the your outreach tool side of things, like for example, outreach. I know outreach as a tool won't allow you to email more than like 50 or 100 people per day. So there's like some regulation there, but in terms of common room, if you're you can use like what we advise people to use is like a status within HubSpot or Salesforce or Outreach, so that if you say we're adding Noah to a HubSpot sequence or an Outreach sequence, once Noah's added there, the status will change. It should change in one of those platforms from like open to like working. And then when that changes, you would just add a filter to your segment to say like, don't include anyone with this working status. Like that's the fastest like workaround to make sure you're not gonna like people that qualify for multiple different segments don't show up for your team to outbound to. Also
Okay.
like he will be like there's also parameters in outreach and other tools where it's like if someone's in one sequence, they won't get added to other sequences. So that's another like safeguard you can apply.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about as we start to build out our motion and start to scale is the potential, I guess, cross contamination of overzealous individuals who forget to double check.
Yeah.
So
You have
that
the
makes
same
me feel
problems.
better.
Yeah, you have the same problems with like HubSpot and like marketing nurturing emails. So if like someone's in an outbound sequence, like you would use
Yeah.
the status in that marketing tool. Same thing applies to common room.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I don't want the marketing team to reach out when a BDR or an AE is reaching out, but also I don't want the BDRs to reach out to contacts that other BDRs are already in the process of reaching out to the same person. So that makes me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah, you just use like campaign contact lead status or one status field and then just say is not or is, to make sure you're safe there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. All right. I think we're at time.
Um,
Yeah.
super quick
Oh, yeah.
question for you, Kevin. So I'm starting to take a look at scoring within Common Room. And I think that as I look at more like signal stacking and that type of thing, I almost feel like there's like an implied score within a signal within signal stacking, right? Just because the level of intent of a certain signal or group of signals. Where do you feel like scoring plays a role within the tool?
Yeah, it kind of comes back to like what are those signals that are meaningful to you and like kind of having a good understanding of like within this group, like what are the high intent signals, and then from there, like at least on the behavioral level, then you can weight and adjust scoring based on the signals of highest importance. And so we have scoring in two different vectors. One is like the fit criteria, which is like, are they your ICP, like what's their company size, etc. And then we have the other thing that Common Room is really powerful that other platforms don't is we have all these signals that you can score based upon. So we have this behavioral criteria where you can just add a rule and say, if they visit our pricing page, for example, um, this is like such a high signal that we want to give this a +10, and then you can give negative and positive points based on what signals are positive and negative signals. I'm gonna cancel this. And then so like once you have like a good idea of that and say like, okay, these are all the scores that we really care about, that's where I would start. And then the helpful thing for, if you were instead of building a play, you could give reps a view that's just like, here's all your top scored accounts or top scored contacts. And then because we have that like scoring mechanism that tells you like, oh, they get this many points because of this score, you can kind of see, you can get that kind of context of like what's happening in this user journey or why this contact or account was scored the way it was. And then you can get even more detail by clicking into the actual person. Like this is like from the rep view is like, oh, I'm going to click in and see, okay, what is all the activity that's happening here? What's their lead score? And like, what are all the key factors that are contributing to this lead score? And that might help me craft a more personalized, thoughtful outbound message because it's not just that they visited a web page or they did some sort of open source activity, but they're also like using our product or declining in product usage or spiking in product usage. And this is all the context that helps with, really meeting the customer where they are in that outbound messaging.
Got it. Got it. So it's almost like a compliment and like a rep can almost look at a score as a unique thing as opposed to like a particular signal play.
Yeah, it's more of like a weighting of like, oh,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
like not only is this a signal-based play, but like this person has the highest score, therefore they have this other activity that we should reach out to them first. And you can go into these different segments and then sort by contact score because like these are the highest likelihood to respond to an outbound message or something like that too. And then also you can train reps to like, oh, also when you're doing this outbound, make sure to look at their score to see what's going on. Maybe there's something that you want to weave in combination with, the different signals that they've done, if you want to mention that in an outbound, for example.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Cool.
To also close this out really quickly on that point, Jay, we also have org scoring too.
Yeah.
So that can also be really helpful in terms of just context around at least like how I use it over in the marketing team here. If I'm just trying to better understand like a cohort of customers, that I can also see the activity and like what's causing these weightings as I apply filters to like a list of orgs to better understand, is this segment of orgs I'm kind of playing with really valuable? So that's
Okay.
something I at least see value with too. Um, Kevin, it looks like you're gonna pull something off really quickly, and then I know we're a few minutes over, and we will let everyone go, I promise,
I
in
was
one
just
second.
I was just showing that just like the context score, you can also do the accounts have behavioral signals and criteria fit signals as well. So it works the exact same way. To Joel's point, like if you look at the company score, or you can include like another bar of organization score when you're in that view. And so maybe like an organization's both person score and company score is like 100%. That'll give you even more context of like, oh, not only is this person engaged, super engaged, but like the rest of the people at their organization are doing X, Y, and Z, and you can like multi-thread there too. It's
Yeah.
a lot of information at once, but like it is possible to do that kind of prioritization. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Cool. Thank you
And
guys.
yeah, of course. And with that, we will wrap up our January 2025 office hours program. So thank you all so much. We will send out the recording as well as some other value add resources, and it will be coming out in the next 24-ish hours. So thank you all and hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Later.